Also sollte heute das Protokoll vortragen, ne? Deswegen frage ich. Just in case somebody is in contact with Ranjan, can you ask him whether he's coming today or not?
Yes, ma'am. Wait, I can.
Okay, thanks. Until Acha Ranjan is here. He had already joined. Sorry.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, ma'am. I do not do the present protocol because I am suffering from fever, and I
Oh,
also injured my hand in the
oh.
train either.
Hmm.
Sorry, ma'am. I next day I will present the protocol.
हाँ, ठीक है कोई बात नहीं.
Yeah, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am.
हाँ, that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, dann, also wir haben kein Protokoll zu besprechen für heute, aber wir können ähm, entscheiden, wer heute das Protokoll schreibt. Ich weiß, dass Suraj und Himanshu, ihr habt beide kein Protokoll geschrieben, ne, bisher. Wollt ihr das machen?
Yeah, ma'am.
ठीक है. Suraj, Himanshu, do you want to write along?
Yes, ma'am,
Or
I can help.
ठीक है. I'm just writing down. Okay, also bevor wir anfangen mit unserem neuen Text, habt ihr irgendwelche Fragen zu unserem letzten Unterricht?
Ma'am, protocol is all about this discussion in the class, or it's like I have to add more points to the
No, no,
specific
no,
text.
no. You don't have to add from your own side. You just have to एक तरीके से zusammenfassen करना है कि हम सब ने क्या discussion किया, main points. You can also do it in point form. I mean, as long as it covers everything. It does not need. This is some people have done elaborate protocols that is not needed. You don't have to write answers or essays. You just have to jot down major points जो हमने discuss किए. You can have a look at the protocols just to get a hang of it.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Jesse, im letzten Unterricht haben wir über diesen Text besprochen. Das waren die Hauptpunkte. You have the freedom to prioritize the points. You have the freedom to also reorganize the points. You don't have to go chronologically. ठीक है. Noch welche Fragen? Okay, dann die Frage meinerseits ist, habt ihr die 2 Szenen, die auch Akte sind, gelesen? Konntet ihr das lesen? Okay. Und was ist mit den anderen? Also ich gehe davon aus, besonders wenn ihr schweigt, ich gehe davon aus, dass ihr das gelesen habt, oder? Wenigstens der erste Akt. Okay, chalo, before beginning with the drama itself, I'm also assuming that you read a bit about it here and there. You have a certain idea about it. Just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Wie heißt der Text? Zunächst einmal. Wir fangen mit dumme Fragen an. Wie heißt der Text, den wir heute besprechen?
Rommel in der Nacht.
Rommel in the Nacht.
Wer hat diesen Text geschrieben? Was ist das für ein Text?
Bertolt Brecht.
Okay, Bertolt Brecht hat diesen Text geschrieben. Was für einen Text ist das?
Drama.
Okay, das ist ein Drama oder ein Theaterstück. Falls ihr den Unterschied kennt zwischen den beiden Terminologien. Ein Drama ist das Geschriebene, was wir im Unterricht besprechen, aber ein Theaterstück ist, was aufgeführt wird, was wir natürlich nicht im Ganzen besprechen können, weil ich keine Aufführung gefunden habe im Internet. Matlab, obviously I could find it, but they were new renderings. Obviously they were also changed. ठीक है, तो this is a drama or a Theaterstück, je nachdem. Wann wurde das geschrieben?
1920.
Yeah, 1919.
1919, मतलब obviously थोड़ा सा वो है ये, because it was written in 1919 the very first time, but it was presented I think in 2022 Entschuldigung, ठीक है. Leon Feuchtwanger के influence में लिखा, he was also at that time a very great dramaturg, if you have heard anything about it. So before we begin, what else do you know about the Stück? Before we come back to it, what else did you notice? Ja, stimmt. Spartacus Aufstand. Okay, it has a political. बेटा
4 major characters है.
हाँ ठीक है, एक तो ये तुम्हारा politischer Hintergrund में है Spartacus Aufstand, ठीक है. Wie kommt das vor? Das wird später besprochen. Are there 4 major characters? Can you name them?
Anna and Anna's parents and Andreas.
Anna, die Eltern, ठीक है. Die heißen auch was? Anna Balliker, ठीक है. Die Eltern, die heißen der Vater Karl Balliker und die Mutter Amalie Balliker, ठीक है. Okay. Und wer ist der Hauptprotagonist? Du hast schon genannt.
Andreas.
हाँ, Andreas Kragler, ठीक है. Okay. Warum dann nicht Murk? Er spielt auch eine Rolle. Ja, aber wir kommen dazu später. Ich sammle nur die Punkte, die von euch kommen. Okay, was kennt ihr noch? Was habt ihr noch zu sagen? Geschrieben, uraufgeführt und so weiter. Was habt ihr noch bemerkt? Habt ihr etwas über die Struktur zu sagen? Wie lang ist der Stück? Wie ist dieser Stück strukturiert? Und was alles merkt man, wenn man ein Theaterstück in Sicht hat? Bolo? Even if you didn't read, for example, both the acts, you must have gone through it कि कितना लंबा है, क्या है, कैसे organized है, कैसे played हो, क्या क्या देखा जाता है जब हम कोई text, obviously मतलब poem जब हम लेते हैं तो कुछ और चीजें देखते हैं. We begin by seeing the structure, ना, चाहे essay हो, चाहे poem हो, चाहे short story, we see how long is it, how is it structured, is there something I need to take care of while reading it. So what did you notice?
Ma'am, it's a 5-act play or like a comedy play, which also consists like the importance of class struggle.
Yeah.
And like as it is written in between like 1919 and 2022, so I guess like it also revolves around the revolution, like the World War I, or in between World War II, or whatever the situation over there.
Yeah, मतलब not World War II, but yeah, the war just ended. World War I just ended because the time is this,
I mean, the Weimar classism.
not classism, Weimar Republic, हाँ, you're right, ठीक है. तुम्हारा World War just ended, you have this Kaiser Reich, ठीक है, and then you have people fighting. We'll come to this, and we'll come a bit. तुम थोड़ा मुझे और बताओगे इसके बारे में, what is this Spartacus Aufstand, what was hat dieser Stock mit dem Krieg zu tun, was haben die Charaktere mit dem Krieg zu tun, und जो तुम ये Klassen, what do you call struggle in German, conflict है ना, Klassen conflict की जो तुम बात कर रहे हो, है ना, Class conflicts etc. Wie sind die Charaktere rund darum organisiert? But ठीक है, you are right, correct कि this theater मतलब जो है is एक तरीके से divided into 5 acts. You were supposed to have read 2 acts. What else do you notice? You said it's a comedy. How did you notice that it's a comedy? Was hat dir das gesagt, dass es hier eine Komödie handelt? Und nicht eine Tragödie. Ihr habt sicherlich den ersten Akt gelesen. हाँ, तो क्या पढ़ के क्या लगा? Von Sprache her, von was nimmt man noch in Sicht? Obviously, unfortunately, we are not seeing the theater in front of us. But what else is taken into account when we are reading? What is the first thing that you read? जब तुम Trommeln in der Nacht तुमने खोल के देखा, सबसे पहले क्या दिखा तुमको? Apart from the bad German, because obviously this is a very bad PDF. ठीक है? This is a fault in the PDF. I couldn't find any other version of it. If you by chance you have any access to a better version, please do share with us. So it's a struggle in itself to decode कि क्या लिखा है ये. But I'll share with you the English version, because also उसमें थोड़े comments भी given है जो तुम्हें आप English version से तो तुम्हें थोड़ा सा वो पता चल जाएगा कि जहाँ पे you are unable to decode कि क्या लिखा हुआ है, you can find out कि क्या हो सकता है. But I think it was still readable. The English version I'm sharing also because there are comments written by Brecht himself about his Stück. Later on जब हम पढ़ेंगे, जब हम इसको खत्म कर लेंगे कि when we come to the interpretation कि how did he really mean for it to be and how did it turn out, वो अलग चीजें हैं. But yes, how apart from the fact, तुम खुद ही बताओ, apart from ये क्या कहते हैं ignoring the Google and K and percentage, तुम्हारा एक तो तुम्हारे characters के बारे में mentioned है obviously, and in the first 2 acts I'm just listing down all the characters that are there. In the first act, which characters come up? You already told me Anna Balecker, her parents Karl Balecken and Amelie Balecker. Andreas Kragler turn up at the very end, but before that you have Friedrich Murk. Who is he? Karl. Who? Das ist right? And also adrenaline from war. You have these. I mean, when you talked about class, I think you did. So, which class does he belong to?
I think he's a soldier in this way, and I think the story revolves around him, and because of the work or like whatever the name it is, like he belongs to like kind of a Louis era or kind of that family, which usually the families are like very wealthy at that time. So I think the story revolves about both of them. That like their family approaches Anna to get married or something like that. I don't understand.
The book is bourgeois. Camille bourgeois लिखा हुआ है, the middle class, and he also, I mean, he's talking about himself. He worked his way up. He was a worker, but he worked his way up, and also profited from the lot, like you said. There are structures. So art and love the lower shift. Okay, you are right. Anna and Andrea were in a relationship. Perhaps they were supposed to get married, but I mean, what is the background? We come back to it. What is the background of Tony? If you had read the first act of this, Anna and Andrea were in love with each other, but if we suppose and it is situated in a post-World War first World War time. So what do you think is the story? Where was Andreas all this time? True. So he was fighting in Africa, he was away. Perhaps I can just ask what happens in the first act. Okay? तुम्हारे 4-5 लोग हैं, there are other people as well, let me know जब वो मतलब कहानी बताओगे फर्स्ट एक्ट की, एक दो लोग और हैं इसमें फर्स्ट एक्ट में ही. So what happens first? मैं आना हाँ. Okay. So it starts with Carl and Yamini talking to each other and about Anna. That Anna should not stop being in love with Andrea since he has been away. How long has he been away? And probably dead also. Because so he has been away for 4 years and is probably dead. So she should go on and marry Friedrich Mork. Who you said he is. So they are trying to convince, succeed in convincing. So the spectacles you have the glue book. So what is the relationship between Anna and Friedrich? I mean, Anna and Andrea because they are like in love with each other, but he is not here and she still loves him, but she has to move on. But what is going on between Anna and Friedrich?
मतलब लोग था उसका आना का.
He becomes the terror, but some kind of I mean anybody else can say कि क्या था उसमें. Were they in the relationship also? What is going on about it? That is, we can talk about the characterization as well. True, but there is there an indication that something is going on between them or not already? Anna and Friedrich are sleeping around. Okay? It's not like they don't have anything going on between them. Okay? So she is sleeping with him, though she refuses, he needs anything. So she is in love with Andreas, but जैसे जैसा लिखा था ना बस स्पेशल उन्स जहाँ बीच में रही है जहाँ पे हम बात करें ना कि फर्स्ट कैसे आई है जल्दी when Mork asks him कि उन स्पेशल उन्स das was fleischlich ist ना याद है तुमको something carnal between us. हाँ ये तो क्या प्यार not shared the text. The text is visible. But da hängt da ist der geht sagt Mork Andrea überall da. Das war anders. Das war was unique reagieren kannst, weil das nicht geistig war. Und das zwischen uns, das ist leichtlich, das ist zwischen uns, das ist nichts. Und so weiter. Okay? So perhaps it's very clear. You can somewhere else also very says, I think it is that. In der Erde, du bist ein Arzt, aber die gestern nach dem Jahr nicht, ist wir noch rochen. Durch die Schlafen geben, Maul wird, schlägt sich an ihn. I mean, this is not supposed to be the dialogue, this is supposed to be explanation, schlägt sich an ihn. Wir nicht. Und so weiter. So something physical is going on between. Even if because she says, "Oh, I do love him, but not really love him." So she is at the moment missing Kragler, but at the same time going right was like more work. Because whoever has read the story first, she ends up being getting pregnant by work. Okay. So this is something that is going on between the two. What else? So you have this Anna Balika. Development Anna is not here anymore. War maybe guy dead. She's going with him. She really love him, but has some carnal thing going on with him. And he wants to marry her. She doesn't really want to marry him, but does end up agreeing to her parents half-heartedly. So perhaps can talk a bit about the characters now before we go any further. Everybody characters are there. But I mentioned Karl Uramali. के बारे में already said he is a egoist, and he is like a self-centered person. मतलब things getting more clear about his next act, but he does try to have his way. I want to go here, I want to go to America, I have to be this self-centered egoistic person. Okay. What about बोलो किस बारे में बोलना चाह रहे हो? हाँ okay, perhaps that, but more than that, is it simply that she is superstitious, or has it something to do with things else as well about her character? So that fear is not necessarily superstition. That fear has been embedded in. Let's make it very clear. These are pretty clear about their intention. But Anna Uramali are not. That was what we are seeing here. Ridresh is okay, he's an egoist person and he's a nasty person, whatever, but very clear. And he knows, he feels that Anna is not really in love with him, and that she still has something to the writer. But she still wants to marry her ex, and he has very clear idea about his self as well. Karl Balika is also very clear about that. And what is it? How does he stand to Anna Unala's relationship and his whole business, Anna returns, etc. What is his? I mean, how does he see all this? हाँ बोलो.
So both the parents they were aware that Andrea will not be able to provide a life like Friedrich will do. So what I feel from these two acts, that their parents are usually insecure and a little possessive when it comes to their kids. So were these also Karl and Amali, and so they wanted that Anna should stick to her argument or to her decision, and they were motivating her and trying to see to it that she does change her mind. So I found them insecure and possessive and
but aren't they both in one sense you are correct that both of them do not want Anna to be together under Andrea because they can provide to her wherever she can. But are there also any differences between the characters? vis-a-vis Andreas also.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody pointed out, Gautam pointed out, apart from the fact that she seems to be superficial, definitely more has something else, but this has to do with anything else as well. And also his ideal character, no doubt. Yes, Carl on the other hand is not weak as much as Nagini is, but what else? Jessica Carl is clear. He hates Andreas, he does not want the two to be together. He's clear about his. But what about Amelie? Does she show any sympathy towards Andreas in the beginning at least? So we have to be clear that Amelie does feel for Anna and Andreas. Love would be behind Anka. She does feel for Andreas because she says that Andreas is much better than Friedrich, no doubt. But she has her doubts like society because as parents, perhaps she wants her daughter to have some means of sustenance also. But Carl on the other hand, it took he has no doubts about it, and when Gus does return, his stand is clear. At the same time, he has his own agenda going on as well. He seeks profit from Friedrich's alliance with Anna, with Mikael mentioned hybrid, and now I can start a business, etc. So that is also good. If Friedrich just belong to Bhagwa class, and Carl also belong to Bhagwa class. No? He has an agenda behind this. He cannot gain anything from Andreas, he does seek to gain anything from Friedrich's alliance. No. एक ये चीज हो रही है. What would you say about Anna? What would you say about Andreas and whether he has just one character? Just when I would realize, I guess I'm not. Correct. But who is that? You are right. It means what the business I think my mind own that. But is that the business you use again because it is the new all time to attack हो जाता है तरीके से. Okay, so you are right. Bush judge होना this. And you might find something about him as a character. I don't know whether he comes up in the first chapter or not, or in the second one. In the first half was not very clear, but in the second half we do know something about him when he makes Andreas also speak up. So coming back to the background again. यहाँ पे हमने देख लिया कि ये लोग हैं, ये क्या कैरेक्टर है. But coming back to the background and also the setting, what are the things that we look for the second में जब सोच बड़ी थी. We always talk about location and this and that. So is there anything that we need to take care of apart from the characters? Character क्या scheme है? वो देखना होता है which we just did. What else should we look out for? जो तुमने part में किया है ना बोलो.
Moral or their like what we take out of it.
Okay, that will come in and I think that will general to all the texts. But let us talk about the timelines. There's a difference between the era that restricts us and I'm not sure whether 20th century texts would be so clear about the layer, especially this text, which is not very the way it is organized. It's so unclear about the layer that it ends up being misunderstood. Now about which we'll talk later on. Let's talk about the same. What do you think is the meaning? The partially you have mentioned, this is in the last level might be part of the theme. Okay, fine. Not very explicitly there. But what else do you think? First to act, what is it about?
Like it shows World War also, like war and revolution, and like uh, it's quite critical also. Um, does it actually happen in a normal life? It happens very rare. Comes after 4 years, and after he has been he's supposed to be dead. So like
today's time, where it seems to be pretty dramatic too, that it is a very rare occurrence. But you are in a way right, partially you are right. If so, but let us use Krieg's time here, because obviously this clearly does pick up this very explicit. Now we have Krieg's time error. They are in a way a class in itself, and during this time you have to understand that the World War One just ended. It was a game, right? No. And whatever we think pretty dramatic and unreal, they it had a pretty common occurrence that people got dead. They had given up on them, they returnees, if I'm using the correct term. This was a big vote during that time. We are talking in literature, but obviously literature is reflecting the reality of that time. इसके बाद World War II के बाद हाई एरन वाला जो that had become pretty normal. जैसे humor became normal today, we call it dramatization, है ना? So you are right. Greeks hide एरन
आपका point like अब मैंने सोचा आपसे मैं आगे उससे compare कर रही थी, like side पे like journalism news और ये चीजें मुश्किल होगी एकदम से लोगों को पहुंचनी. So like उस टाइम पे ऐसा होना शायद आसान है, या मतलब ऐसा होता है कि जो लोग डेड कंसिडर लिए गए हैं वो टाइम वापस आ जाए. But here का जो टाइम पीरियड है ये थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा, but maybe उस टाइम के हिसाब से हो सकता है.
But obviously it's a right. Obviously it is a there you are. I'm saying that you are in a way correct also, because this show is not only thinking of the reality of that time, but it is also responding to the themes of that time. That means कि whatever had become also only literature of that time. Okay, to better dramatize these occurrences. So obviously it all, like you said, seems as I said after 4 years written. Though obviously it's not unrealistic, but it is dramatized, but it is also a strategy which is used, which will come later on. I mean, what else do you take into account where thinking about, because like everybody mentioned, it's a comedy, and it seems very odd to talking about this revolutionary whatever other things we could talk about, and put them under comedy, especially during that time. Basically, like political upheaval, time you are using comedy as a tool. So obviously dramatization, satirization of that dramatization is also part of the theme, which is by Brecht, mostly. Also talk about Brecht, we had to, we should have started at that, and then we can career. Let's stick to this theme. Here is like you said, class conflict, revolution, all that. Time here and also I have biology. What else comes to your mind? You think of the theme. Yeah. So let's come back to this. What else do you can talk about? हमारे पास है कि this uses this characterization, हमारे पास है कि अलग character that is how they are connected to each other. I'm also thinking how to organize these questions by PT. What does this fall under? What else can we consider that time in the present, since it is in 1999, it is also dealing with the same. Bolo.
That's student expression still is totally suicide date. I mean the time period of expression is about to end. So I think we can also give it this. I don't think into it.
Okay, मतलब though for other people it might be confusing because you have read about this yet. I mean, we are not something that you have just knowledge, but you are right because Brecht is actually responsible to this major style. It will come to Brecht and how he employed in the field of drama itself. Okay, but you are right. He is responding to expression, and that is part of the reason why dramatizations are excited because first of all you know what is expression is drama and how it is then what is the major input of Brecht under it is supposed to be seen as expression or not or mixture of both but in a way characterizing expressionism. ठीक है तो मैं एक्सप्रेशनिज्म लिख रही हूँ लेकिन प्लीज रिमेंबर कि लाइक यू सेड कि एक्सप्रेशनिज्म इज ending during that time and Brecht is like the major person who is displacing this way of जो भी है theater stuck जो Aufführen करते हैं. That means, but how do you know कि expressionism कैसे देखोगे? Coming back to the setting ना तुम्हारा ये तो चलो साइट हो गया सॉरी साइट und तुम्हारा ये Ort und Raum की जो बात थी Entschuldigung Ort Raum Zeit und so weiter all that stuff ठीक है Raum Setting में आ जाएगा चलो Zeit Ort कि it is Zeitgenössisch it is in Deutschland Zeitgenössisch in the sense that it is wo and like you said कि there is a heavy political hintergrund to it which is at the end of World War I and the Spartacus Aufstand because of which by the way Trommel India Nacht what does it tell you Trommel India Nacht was actually this Stück was first named although later on he changed his was Spartacus okay it was named Spartacus what is this
Satchita,
huh?
as you mentioned about the site and Ort, so like the site and Ort where he wrote this now
not that where he wrote this but where is the story situated
okay
it is not situated in some past time जैसे हमने last नहीं चलो हमने actually अभी तक कुछ पढ़ा नहीं है ऐसा वाला जो हम text में situated in past जैसे इसका मोटर खुराज वाला जो text it's placed in 30 years wars past में कहीं या कुछ placed elsewhere in China या ऐसे but it is actually placed in the same time during which it was published around because 1922 में पहली बार आया सामने तो okay it became a little bit past but it's still contemporary ना अभी हुआ है and it is situated in Germany obviously Kragler is returning from Africa and the first act is called Africa because he's returning from there but he's returning to Germany okay so that is going on but what was I saying coming to the Spartacus Aufstand as politischer Hintergrund so what is this what is going on during that time during which this in which times these story is then situated the story is about a person returning from war and finding out कि उसकी जो lover है वो फिर लोप हो गई है किसी और के साथ fine but what is this Trommel India Nacht and Spartacus have to do with this what is the background what is happening देखो Trommel India Nacht to simply we are not going to deliberate much on it drums in the night obviously it reminds you of the Aufstand only ठीक है that agitation that happens which happens in the which is indicated in the first act itself and in the second it starts है ना but you tell me first of all what is this Aufstand about Anybody? किनकी तरफ से था, कौन सी दूसरी पॉलिटिकल अरेगनेस से इन्फ्लुएंस था? हाँ बोलो। हाँ 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 हाँ, ठीक है। तो इट वाज अ बिग इवेंट ड्यूरिंग दिस टाइम, ठीक है। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल इन्फ्लुएंस्ड बाय द नवंबर रेवोल्यूशन, तुम्हारा जब कम्युनिस्ट टुक ओवर रशिया, ठीक है। जर्मनी में भी ऑब्वियसली पॉलिटिकल अनरेस्ट या इंस्टेबिलिटी चल रही है, बिकॉज वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 हार गए, और जो मतलब जो भी सब चीजें चल रही हैं, एंड तुम्हारा काइजरटूम था, उसको डिस्प्लेस करने की कोशिश की जा रही है। आइनरसाइट्स, यू हैव सोशलिस्ट, जैसे तुम कह रहे हो। आई मीन टुडे people tend to conflate the two, socialist and communist, but communist is more radical in that sense कि they said कि नहीं, socialist भी नहीं, we सीधा we want a communist regime, and they although जैसे कि the people who are involved, if you know anything, तुम्हारा ये I forgot the first name, but Liebknecht and his wife Rosa Luxemburg, and they are pretty well-known names in this. No? They were leading this revolution. So you have these workers movement, and trying to establish by force their own communist regime here, which obviously failed. It was a political conflict going on. ठीक है, initially तुम्हारा जो रोजा लुक्समबर्ग है, she actually wanted elections. She was not for forceful. Obviously, revolution can mean a lot of things. So she might have been for revolution, but not for forceful, not elected जबरदस्ती का displacement. She was out, क्या बोलते हैं उसको, मतलब she वो minority में नहीं थी, उसको नहीं सुना गया. So I mean it went out of hand, this revolution also. But obviously that is not the theme of this. Yeah, perhaps partially this is the theme of this shtuk. Later on we'll see. ठीक है, कि किस तरीके से out of hand हो गया revolution. And in the end obviously this revolution was also brutally niedergeschlagen, and your Liebknecht and Rosa Luxemburg, both of them were caught by the Freikorps. And it's a complicated political thing. जो मतलब जैसे कि Freikorps से खुद ही पता चल रहा है ये Freikorps का क्या मतलब होता है, and that in a way the other people who wanted to come in power, वो अपना indirect तरीके से जो दूसरे पॉलिटिकल काम कराते हैं, they are like free soldiers, but obviously they were not free soldiers, ठीक है, they were working under them. They killed both of them, they assassinated तुम्हारा Liebknecht and this is a very well known story, Rosa Luxemburg को especially. I mean, it's also a sad story in that sense, because it's a very ironical thing, like the person who was actually against forceful taking over, and she was for elections, she was the one ended up suffering also. But both of them were killed, and their bodies were thrown in canals, and the bodies were found months later. Okay, I mean, which is obviously this through that there was an outrage as well. So this is a whole Hintergrund. The Hintergrund is also that the World War First was fought under the name of the तुम्हारा जो भी है काइजरटूम जो था जर्मनी का, and that workers were especially not happy with what was going on. ठीक है, तो there is a mixed thing going on. Obviously violence and forceful taking over is one thing that we can be against, but then there is another thing going on, which is fighting for whose name and who is profiting from this war, and who is ending up एक तरीके से being exploited, जिसके अगेंस्ट ये सब एजिटेशंस शुरू हुई थी. ठीक है, तो दिस वर्कर्स रिवोल्ट एज वेल. ठीक है, तो ऑब्वियसली दिस Klassenkampf is also part of this shtuk, which is clearly visible in the choice of characters, whereby you have Ballecker as bourgeois, and obviously Murk as that nasty bourgeois, versus Kragler as but obviously it's not very clear कि क्या होने वाला है, वो तुम देखेंगे आगे जाके कि इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि दिस इज अ फेयर हेरिलेशन ऑफ रेवोल्यूशन आल्सो. दिस shtuk टेक्स अ वेरी क्या बोलते हैं अभी केयरफुल स्टैंड टुवर्ड्स बोथ ऑफ दीज थिंग्स, आइनरसाइट्स क्रीग, अंडरसाइट्स रेवोल्यूशन. ठीक है, तो इसके बीच में फंसा हुआ हमारा क्रागलर है. अभी क्रीग से रिटर्न करके आया है, एंड लेटर ऑन व्हेन ही जॉइंड द रेवोल्यूशन आल्सो, व्हिच इज द ऑपोजिट ऑफ क्रीग का वो. ठीक है, तो दिस इज द ओवरऑल Hintergrund in which this shtuk is placed in which you have these people. Up the question is also, perhaps we can come to the, which is also an important thing to say, कि भैया जो लिख रहे हैं वो कौन है, Bertolt Brecht कौन है, if you know anything about him. Do you know anything about Bertolt Brecht? Have you heard anything about him?
Like, I while reading about this, I don't know how true it is, but like he's born in Augsburg, and like he drums in the night भी उसने Augsburg में लिखा है. That's why I asked you when you said, or when you wrote about sight and all.
हाँ, that was चलो okay. In a way, that thing worked out well, but that is not what I sight and odd means actually. He could have written it elsewhere as well, but the sight odd in context of where the story is situated in Sholay. ठीक है, but you are right that he is born in Augsburg and to a bourgeois family, ठीक है, not to a proletariat family. ठीक है, तो he, and what is he known for? You're right, Ekta.
Ma'am, like one of the popular works was done by him is like Epic Theater, I think.
It's not a popular work, okay, but you'll study it later on. It is a kind of theater which started with him. He completely molded the face of the, and that is why Bertolt Brecht is known throughout the world. It's not only in Germany that he is an important figure.
And I think he also depicted the Marxist theory, or like believes in Marxism.
If anybody knows anything about his way of, okay. So he was like, he also saw the reality of war there and shifted his allegiances through that. So he was a Marxist, and in a way, in fact, he was also to the point of being a communist. He's not simply Marxist, but also communist later on. Okay, but during the time he wrote this book, so at that time he was not communist. Okay, so that's why you have this gray area going on here. Okay, so he's not really talking directly for. So एक ये चीज है, ठीक है, he belongs to the left, correct, but like you pointed out, or somebody else pointed out, that his major contribution to the world is his Apicius theater, which we'll study in more detail in your theater course later on. Okay, but what is this Apicius theater? And that is why it's important to note that this particular work is written in response to expressionism, which was the earlier form going on already. So does anybody know anything about the Apicius theater? दूसरा connected to that Verfremdungs effect, the alienations effect. Okay, that comes from him. These are the two terms majorly connected to him. So does anybody know anything about Apicius theater? Yeah, the kind of theater that he brought in.
That the story used to be clear and known, and like जैसे कोई suspense या surprise नहीं होता था, and like that used to be the purpose, and there used to be some meaning and education in the scenes in the play.
Okay. ठीक है, correct. Okay, in a sense that it was more realistic than the earlier form, which अगर तुम expressionism की बात करोगे, so you think about that melodrama and exaggerations. I mean, if you know anything about expressionism as a movement, okay, so you have those grand paintings or this and that, all that जो melodramatic stuff है. So it is in response to that kind of theater, like you said, कि एक तो one kind of theater which is emotionally involving you, in the sense that you watch it and you identify with the characters and you weep for the characters, with the characters, and then you have something called catharsis. When you, ठीक है, it's just, I'm just familiarizing, अभी हम उसमें बात नहीं कर रहे, that this is in connection with the earlier theater form, in the sense that you go to a theater and it is cut off from the real world. It is it might be talking about reality, but in a very idealistic way and dramatic way, so that it is cut off from real life, and you go there and you have जैसे Bollywood movies में नहीं होता है कि तुम hall में जाते हो, you have all those feelings, you weep and you get out of the theater and you're back in the normal life and living the way you were living earlier. ठीक है, तो you have that cathartic moments. हाँ, जैसे ओपेरा में होता है cathartic moments, ठीक है, you just weep and then you are done with your emotions. In opposition to that, like you said, first of all, the themes are pretty, even if they are not set in the same era, they are pretty clear, I mean, realistic, and they are also to create that real, because realism can mean anything. ठीक है, वो तुमने last जो हमने कामू का पढ़ा था तब भी discuss किया था कि it can mean anything. ठीक है, but realistic in the sense that it is not letting the viewer attach herself or himself emotionally to whatever is happening in front of them. The apicious theater is basically about the Fremdung's effect in the sense that you are distanced from the work of art in a way that you are constantly reminded that what you are viewing in front of you is just a story, and the people who are playing those characters are just actors. Okay? So that you don't get mixed up emotionally with the story, and you retain your senses and you keep on thinking. Thinking is जैसे तुम layer की बात कर रहे हो, perhaps yes, but the main thing is not about teaching, because teaching can also come through other forms, but through keeping the viewer, or in other forms the reader or whatever, whoever, mentally alert. You are aware of the fictionality of the when you said na, कि it's clear, it's more like if the fictionality is apparent to you, you don't get lost in the story. जैसे तुमने कभी सुना है the क्या बोलते हैं उसको, forgotten myself, suspension of disbelief, है ना, जो usually when you pick up a book and you get lost in the story, that thing is disrupted through Fremdung's effect. And majorly this is मतलब मोटा मोटा बता रही हूँ, this is the apicious theater, which by the way this text is not completely, because these are his earlier attempts. By this time he did not come up with the theory of apicious theater, etc. He's written a lot on apicious theater also, but this is just, you can see elements of that happening. That means we have to be clear, and that is why the comedy part is there. Comedy is one of the literary strategies which disrupts that identification. That means it stops you from feeling those emotions even for Kragler or for Anna or for anybody for that matter. You are distanced. Okay, so is this much clear? That means when you have those nukkar natak, in India also there has been a lot of influence of Bertolt Brecht. In theater there is majorly impacted. तुम बाद में पढ़ोगे, लेकिन नुक्कड़ नाटक भी तो ऐसे ही होते हैं ना. It does not, they are not, first of all, so they are played outside, जान के, they are mixed up with the audience. Audience is involved. मतलब I'm just talking about अभी हल्का ऐसे ही, what kind of Fremdung's effect are used to create this disruption, and that is, for example, involvement of the audience or breaking out of the character and suddenly clearly showing you that I'm the character, I'm just an actor playing that role, or something else. And now this is the question for you. That means obviously we are limited while we are reading this text, in the sense that we have to read it and we can't see it. Okay? But even there are things that point towards that. जैसे in the very beginning, even before the story starts, थिएटर को ऐसे पढ़ते हैं ना कि हम ये देखते हैं कि हमें बताया जाता है कि स्टेज कैसे सेट है. That kind of setting. What kind of setting is there in this shtuk? Before we even talk about what is happening in the shtuk, although we did. How is the stage setting done? I hope the background noise is not audible to you. Going back up, even before I know it's a bad copy, but chalo, after we are told who are these people involved, you have directions, Glossophilie Bühne. Did you read that? What is Glossophilie Bühne? It means it's the instructions for how the stage is to be set. And what are the instructions? Just read through it, Abhi.
Also, das ist, wurde in München gespielt und die Stadt wurde dann hier aufgemalt.
हाँ
Der Mond glühte rot auf.
हाँ, अब ध्यान से देखो इसमें क्या क्या चीजें नजर आ रही है तुमको जो कि तुम्हें लगता है कि इम्पोर्टेंट है. इट्स नॉट दैट द स्टार्ट इज aufgemalt. Important is it's been kindlicherweise aufgemalt. What does this mean?
Genau.
Or it's an intentional thing. It could have been because see, it is. I know that we are also limited regarding our four vision. कि expressionism में there were grand settings. ठीक है? I mean, you can watch it in some movies. I've forgotten the name of the movie, लेकिन expressionist movie है. वो उसमें you have those grand settings you can see, even if they are not really realistic, क्योंकि expressionism is also all about exaggeration, but still it's मतलब intricate paintings, ये सब वो सब मतलब grand तरीके से सजा हुआ है stage. In opposition to that, within that same time period, you have Brecht का setting जिसमें Kindlicherweise में aufmalen की गई है stud. एक तो you have Pappschermen, ठीक है, which is okay, मतलब Pappschermen is still okay, which are the stellen die Zimmerwände da, because like you see it's mostly played out in inside the buildings. ठीक है, this is also an interesting thing to note always कि where is the story situated, Raum क्या है, ठीक है, and Raum here especially theater में it matters. ठीक है, Raum is always inside, not always, अभी तो हमने टू वो पढ़ी है अभी एक्ट, और दोनों में इट्स इनसाइड द वो, एक तो इनसाइड घर, दूसरा इनसाइड पिकाडेली बार तुम्हारा जो है, ठीक है, बट इट्स इनसाइड एंड ऑब्वियसली दैट हैज अ रोल टू प्ले. तो लेकिन वो पापशर्मन से 2 मीटर की वो है, लेकिन उसके पीछे जो सिटी डार्स्टेलन की गई है, ठीक है, दैट इज डन इन Kindlicherweise. What effect does it have, especially in that time where expressionist cinema was the norm? And what does it do to your story?
Makes it a little unreal maybe.
हाँ, but you have to know, एक तो you are right, makes it a bit unreal, not in the sense that you are not dealing with real themes, but it is one of the Verfremdung effect we were talking about. That especially
that this is just set up, like it's not actually
exactly. ठीक है, makeshift हमने बना दी हैं, जैसे कि the other ways of क्या क्या तरीके हो सकते हैं Verfremdung effect के, गंदे तरीके से मेकअप किया हुआ है, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल जान के, ठीक है, ओवर मेकअप किया हुआ है, ड्रैग की तरह मेकअप किया हुआ है, ठीक है, जानकर, सो दैट टू शो इट टू यू कि इट इज नॉट मतलब डोंट गेट लॉस्ट इन द स्टोरी, इट इज अ जस्ट अ प्ले. ठीक है, सो यू हैव दिस Kindlicherweise में aufmalen की हुई है सिटी. अब this the other thing that you pointed out, jeweils einige Sekunden vor dem Auftauchen Kragler. So जब Kragler, जिसने भी 2 acts पढ़ी है, they must have noticed that this Rotermond has a role to play. हाँ, it is coming up as a motif. ठीक है, तो जब Kragler enter करेगा सीन, ठीक है, तब तक जो मॉन्ड है वो रूट ऑफ ग्लूएन करेगा, और although इसमें नहीं है वो, but later on what is the other thing that accompanies his Auftauchen? एक तो der Rotermond, दूसरा also wind, der Wind weht, der Mond glüht rot auf, ठीक है. What is that? What is the purpose of that?
Sensation.
Is it sensation, or is it satirization of this very sensation, which was perhaps the norm in expressionism? Because if it is done, if you have read this two, I know that you have, तो कहीं पर वो mention भी करता है ना खुद Kragler कि the Mond has nothing to do with me. I am not क्या कहते हैं, the ghost. तो एक तो you are right कि sensation in the sense कि because his appearance is always connected with the ghost has returned, है ना. after 4, like you said earlier, it seems to be very unrealistic, and in a way you were right. Okay, but to make fun of that also, it's not like you have to really become very emotional about this ki oh 4 saal baad लौट रहा है, this and that. So by exaggerating this entry scene and doing it repeatedly, ठीक है, it is made fun of also. Wind वेन कर रही है, Mond wrote outglue कर रहा है whenever Kragler enters. ठीक है, so this is another Verfremdungs effect which is used here. Now it disconnects with our comedy, by the way. You pointed out yourself na कि एक comedy है, it's not a tragedy, although the themes are all serious and tragic and this and that he's whatever, you noticed this already, but what other things are there? चलो मतलब वहां पे आने से पहले Sprache और the way they are communicating with each other, उस पे आने से पहले what else is, I mean ये जो gramophone this and that, तो चलो we can weglassen, but what about this? Es empfiehlt sich im Zuschauerraum einige Plakate mit Sprüchen wie Jedermann ist der Beste in seiner Haut und glotzt nicht so romantisch aufzuhängen. So this is another thing which is happening, and what is this? And this is not on stage, okay? This is in Zuschauerraum. That means where people are sitting, you should hang certain placate. That means again instructions for the wo apne. But it's like just Sprüche. Just say jedermann ist der Beste in seiner Haut. I mean, I'm pretty sure that you know the meaning. And glotzt nicht so romantisch, especially this. And in another version, it was also who is this? Amelie? No, I think Carl keeps on repeating, no, कि jedermann ist seines Goldes. No, sorry, I forgotten. There's one more thing about the cow. हाँ, but ये जो बार बार अपने जो लोग रिपीट कर रहे हैं उनके तकिया कलाम है वो वर्ड्स, and glotzt nicht so romantisch. This is again creating that bona for you, that it's a play.
Verfremdungs effect. Yeah.
Effect.
Yeah. Plus also that it stops you from actually romantic अनजेन करने से, ठीक है, कितना romantically मत देखो इस चीज को. तो already this thing is happening, and now that we have this in mind, that obviously it is meant to be seen like this. Now that we start reading this text, which we are not reading because you have read it, but you notice already what is happening here, and when you call it a comedy, what are the things? What पहली बात तो was für eine Sprache ist das? Wie kommunizieren sich die Charaktere hier miteinander? Yeah, Africa, by the way, is not the place. ठीक है, this is the name of the act. Bei Baleka के घर पर dunkle Stube mit Mullgardinen. Es ist Abend und so weiter. Er rasiert sich. Although, by the way, through this you can also see one more characteristic of our Herr Baleka. Okay, पहली बात तो ठीक है, मतलब it's okay because we have not read other Stück, so we don't have that comparative angle with us. But very clearly, what kind of language is it? Even if we don't have that comparative angle, what kind of language is it? What do you think?
Like it's easy, but also like the way it's written here. Wenn sie das sagt, ist sie eine Gans, und ich habe like we can say it's metaphorisch also.
Ja, I mean metaphorisch ist es, das stimmt, aber das ist nicht so schön gemeint, ne?
Ja,
Okay. But you are right. First of all, it's an easy language. It's Alltagssprache. And it's also, although ठीक है, we don't have a frame of reference, but still you notice that the Sprache is also not very, although it's not very bourgeois also in the sense that it's not following any style. It's neither flowery, not nor intricate. It's also very vulgar at times. हाँ बोलो शिवानी.
Or maybe umgangssprachlich.
हाँ,
Yeah, and
हाँ,
vulgar also.
हाँ, ठीक है. It's very clearly vulgar. जैसे these are the things he's saying for his own daughter, no? I mean, although it also plays that also makes it a comedy. ठीक है कि und wenn er wiederkommt, aus dem Himmel kommt keiner wieder, bei allem himmlischen Heerscharen die Anna ginge ins Wasser. It means कि वो तो मर ही जाएगी डूब के. If you know the story of Ophelia, she when चलो वो तो अलग कहानी थी, but I mean डूब के मरना तो is like a very romantic thing also. ठीक है. तो मतलब basically and then he's calling his daughter a guns कि अगर वो ऐसा बोलेगी जो भी है तो she is a guns and guns or later on also he says ना तो इसमें he's saying कि ich habe noch keine Guns im Wasser gesehen but later on he also says ना अच्छा भी अब आ गई है अब मैंने लाइफ जैकेट भी पहन लिया बोलो जो बोलना है तो etc etc and also about the sexual thing later on when they are talking amongst each other कौन है अपना ये मूर्ख and uh, what is the term that he uses for her later on vet something I've forgotten. जो भी है मतलब you would notice that there is a vulgar thing going on which by the way is a very new thing during that time. You have to also see in which time period it is and in which context it is aufgeführt initially. You know? So you have those people who are perhaps also shocked. So there were people who liked this shtuck, there were people who didn't also. Precisely because of this. But during this is also true although तुम later on पढ़ोगे कि ऐसा नहीं है कि this is like the first time things like this are being dealt with. Because you've had before that just during Jahrhundertwende तुम्हारा ये decadence movement which already deals with such topics perhaps not in but I think also in such vulgar language you have had naturalisms behind you which already used harsh language so it's not entirely new but immediately after expressionism it might be that ठीक है okay you have Umgangssprache you have vulgar language you have obviously very clear showcasing of how people are like I mean coming back to our characters here what do you feel for these characters while you're reading you have Herr Balika who is talking like this about her daughter who is also a very gearish man also very जैसे वो पैसे नहीं खर्चता ना etc you have Murk talking in a certain way but what about Frau Balika and Anna selbst what do you feel for these characters ओके द लिटिल वर्क दैट आई एम गिविंग अभी वो ये है कि एक बार फर्स्ट उसको एक बार गो थ्रू करो खुद से फर्स्ट एक्ट को यू डोंट नीड टू रीड ईच एंड एवरी वर्ड बिकॉज दैट विल टेक अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम एंड सी कि कहाँ पे तुम्हारे ये डिस्ट्रप्शंस आ रही है जहाँ पे तुम्हें लगता है कि फीलिंग मतलब रोमांटिक फीलिंग या मेलोड्रामा फीलिंग होने के बजाय कुछ और ही इफेक्ट निकल के आ रहा है which is and obviously which is the purpose of the comedy where is the comedy working here ठीक है is this work clear to you the Aufgabe perhaps take 10 minutes time not much ठीक है and just go through the first act and see कि कैसे work कर रहा है कहाँ पे तुम्हारा comedy आ रही है and through that disruption आ रही है and what do you feel again the same question which we didn't answer what do we feel for our characters and why ठीक है
Ich finde es ein ganz außergewöhnliches Stück, weil es ein ganz frühes Stück von Bertolt Brecht ist und eine Thematik beschreibt. Letztendlich das eine ist natürlich der Kriegsheimkehrer, die heutzutage hochaktuell ist. Und zwar geht es darum, dass alle von einer Veränderung, von einer Revolution träumen eigentlich.
Wollen wir besprechen? Leute?
Ja, wir sind da.
Wollen wir besprechen oder braucht ihr noch ein paar Minuten Zeit?
मैम और पढ़ने का मन नहीं कर रहा।
तो पहली बार तो काम दिया भी आज इस 2 घंटे में।
नहीं ब्रेक भी नहीं मिला ना।
2 घंटे की क्लास में क्यों ब्रेक?
पहले तो मिलता था।
2 घंटे की क्लास में कभी नहीं, 3 घंटे की क्लास में मिलता है ब्रेक।
नहीं मैम देती थी आप, हम बच्चों पे रहम के।
तो ठीक है, अब इट्स एमए नाउ।
तो रहम बंद।
बिल्कुल। ओके, एटलीस्ट कुछ बताओ तो सही पहले, फिर तो ब्रेक दूंगी मैं। ओके, wollen wir besprechen oder nicht? मतलब wir wollen besprechen.
No is also an answer.
But seriously, at least let's discuss. Let's start with something. Huh?
For example, here, like when they are trying to convince her to marry him, so like Anna is saying, aber ich kann ihn nicht vergessen, nie. Jeder redet ihr in mich hinein, aber ich kann nicht. So, Balika, also sagt sein Vater, sagt, nimm den Murk, der wird dir schon helfen von ihm. So, also das ist also das sollte romantisch sein, ne? Dass ich liebe ihn, ich kann ihn nicht vergessen. Und der Vater sagt, okay, er wird dir helfen, ihn zu vergessen.
Okay, ठीक है, तो let's stick with this first of all. Throughout the play, whatever we have read in this first act, Balika, I mean, Herr Balika is the one who is coming up with lines which are like anti-romantic, ना एक तरीके से देखा जाए तो it's like saying कि मुझसे बर्दाश्त नहीं होते emotions, पहले भी मुझे रोका है but अब नहीं रोक सकते, etc. All the things that he's saying. Whereas now we have andererseits अपना एक तो through these zwei Frauenfiguren, तुम्हारा ये Amalie, who is feeling a bit guilty about whatever pushing her daughter towards breaking up with Andreas. What if he really comes back, etc., etc. So she has that, and on the other hand, you have your what's her name, Anna. ठीक है, Anna. And she obviously loves him, and throughout you have, at least in the first act, from her side, her dialogues are serious, you know, that's what we see mostly. There is at least once or twice perhaps where you have that break, but initially her dialogues are serious, and her seriousness is always disrupted by her father's responses. So this is one strategy, right? Whenever it threatens to get too sentimental, the father's dialogue will cut that short, है ना?
Anna's dialogues.
हाँ, not Anna's dialogue, but the effect that it should have had on you earlier. If all the characters were on the same page regarding emotions, let us put it this way, ठीक है? We have different characters playing out different emotions, and Balika, or the Herr Balika जो है, and later on also during the conversations of your Murk and other Anna herself, you have that disruption. But the first strategy would simply be your that emotionally these characters are not on the same page, in the sense when Anna, because emotions and the setting, जो तुम्हारी tone mood जो होता है किसी भी work का, it is not set by one person, it is set by collaboration of all the characters in a way. ठीक है, so that gets continuously disrupted because einerseits Anna, obviously she has those sentiments, whereas sometimes even before she gets to that, the father continuously disrupts that sentimentality. Okay, just saying that again, I'm not saying that he's disrupting her literally, but that he's disrupting the sentimentality that otherwise would have flown through her dialogues, है ना? Just saying it differently, जो शिवानी तुमने बोला था.
Yeah.
ठीक है, I mean, instead of looking for one particular example, we can also, by looking at various examples, we can come to a general thesa also. Na? This would be one general point, for example. Okay, What else have you noticed?
The one which you,
Gautam
Gotham,
spoke
you
first.
read.
हाँ. True. ठीक है. In fact, you can talk about the whole character. Characterization पे भी बात की जा सकती है यहाँ पे. अभी तो हम dialogues की बात कर रहे हैं, as if obviously मतलब characters also by their जो inhalt के through disrupt करे, जो तुम कह रहे हो, correct. But the characterization itself, you can have something to say there, ना? What kind of character is Balika here? ना, he's an exaggerated. I mean, मतलब वैसे देखा जाए तो you can say the same thing for all the characters, ना, in a way. हाँ, मतलब I leave it to you. What do you say? But yeah, I agree with you that he's playing that Verfremdungs effect wala cheese, his disruptions, his comedy disruptions, which are bordering on being vulgar also. Okay. Chitwan, you wanted to say something?
I think it is on page 9.
Hmm.
And there, like, Anna is saying to Mork that sei mal still, da fährt ein Zug durch die Nacht. Hörst du, ich habe manchmal Angst, er kommt. Das läuft kalt den Rücken hinunter. So Mork sagt, die Mumie, die nehme ich auf mich und ich dulde keinen zweiten neben mir. Keinen kalten Mann im Bett zwischen uns. So, this was again like said in a very comical way.
True.
And Anna says again, werde nicht böse, komm Friedrich, verzeih mir. Murk, der heilige Andreas. Hirngespinst, das lebt nach unserer Hochzeit so wenig, mehr wie nach seinem Begräbnis.
Huh.
So, and then they say wetten. I don't know what they bet for. Lacht, ich wette ein Kind. And then, the mother, Frau Balika, also comes into role. And then they said Zwillinge, and that was quite weird. Schwere Geburt, was allgemeine Umarmung mit Rührung.
Okay, I mean, it is also confusing because of the way, I mean, again, this is a bad copy, that's why it's a little difficult. But yeah, you are right. First of all, the way he is describing Andreas Kragler, okay, it is funny, and later on also, I mean, this obviously means wetten. Matlab, do you want to bet on it that you, matlab, he'll disappear after our Hochzeit? I will make him disappear. And what do I bet on? I bet obviously it has those जो कि तुम्हारा father भी जो वो, that is I think more clear version of what you're trying to say, but he's not clear version of what you are trying to say, but what is being done here, na? This is this implicit sexual things that are being said. But you are right, ठीक है, कि he is like पूरा फैलाखन कर रहा है उसको कि वो ऐसा ऐसा है this. And even before that, I mean, this is one thing, you are right, we will come to the thing that you didn't understand, एक बार देखते हैं क्या हो रही है बात. चलो वहाँ नीचे चल के देखते हैं, उसके बाद ऊपर आएंगे वापस.
And उसके बाद भी वो ये कहता है कि wann machen wir Hochzeit? Sight is Geld. Like somebody can ask, but for a decision like Hochzeit, one will not say time is money.
But that is what he is saying throughout. Na? That is also one of the things which I asked you. कि ये characterization जो है, it's not simply, it's not enough to say कि मतलब he's a bourgeois. That's it. No, yeah, he's against the marriage. मतलब he's against the relationship of Kragler and Anna. And for him, but that शुरू से ही वो ये दिखाया हुआ है ना कि वो हमेशा पैसों में ही तोले जा रहे हैं. His first dialogue is that कि jeder Mann ist sein Goldes wert, या ऐसा कुछ करके. कहाँ है ऊपर तुम्हारा? And he says that repeatedly. Die Zeiten sind verflucht unsicher. Jeder Mann wiegt Gold. Und so weiter. So this is an exaggerated version of what this character is supposed to portray, which is a bourgeois. Who thinks about money, who weighs relations in terms of money. Obviously an exaggerated caricature version, it's not a realistic characterization also. But the same can be said for any character here. You have your Frau Balika, who is acting like you said, superstition, this and that, you that mummy figure. ठीक है, you have this nasty industrialist who's obviously exaggeratedly nasty, which comes more clearly to the fore in the next act. And you have even Andreas Kragler and Anna. What would you say about those characters? Andreas, of course, I mean, we'll see later on. ठीक है, obviously his character is being caricatured through Mond and Wind and all that stuff and exaggerated वो. But what about Anna's character also? एक सेकंड, अब कहाँ थे, वापस उसी जगह पर आ रहे हैं. आई थिंक 9 पेज पर हम थे. एक सेकंड. What would you say about Anna herself? Is there a consistency in her character? Or is that consistency disrupted at places?
I feel disrupted.
And where can you point that out?
It's difficult to look for the lines which I have read. Okay.
No, what about these lines themselves?
Yeah, here also
जहाँ-
she's saying
Mhm.
कि verzeih mir, and then ist das deine Liebeserklärung. So even though she says she loves him, she also is liking, say, maybe the attention she's getting from him.
that would be the disruption in her क्या बोलते हैं, intention. That character, you are right, she's a confused person. Wow. What I would say, मतलब I wanted to say is also is that usually when you have a shtuck and you want to say a woman suffering under Liebeskummer, you don't have such scenes where she's like being sexually naughty with the other person. यहाँ पे दिख रहा है. Not only Liebeserklärung, but later on, du bist doch ein Aas. Aas is, by the way, in German, it's like bitch. ठीक है? So it's like those sexually laden terms, this and all that stuff. So this obviously this is like a disruption in language itself. You have that vulgar language, but it is also disrupting the Liebeskummer that Anna is supposedly going through. ठीक है? She's in a way, she's missing a lover who is missing for 4 years, and she's keeping him alive in her, trying to keep him alive in her mind, and er ist hier, er ist da, gespinst, this and that, and suddenly her character breaks into this sexually naughty person also. Okay, so that is also happening at the same time. हाँ बोलो.
Yeah, maybe she's looking for distraction, what usually people do.
You can psychoanalyze it. हाँ बोलो.
She's like she will be in deep love with I forgot his name, Andreas, I guess. Yeah.
Andreas.
But at times like when somebody is in so much pain, they look for distraction. So she's just having fun with him in a way. Because there also she's forced to marry him. So एक वो suffering है और एक वो suffering that she'll be not be able to be with her lover and he's no more and all these things, and so she's facing a lot of sufferings, and that's why like this sort of a distraction.
So perhaps you are right. ठीक है, I wouldn't say anything there if you want to psychoanalyze it, but the reason I am simply doubting this is also because तुम्हारा जो especially breast के वो है, they don't want you to take a sous shower. You are not supposed to take this characters as people. ठीक है, something that I warned against earlier as well, that if we are reading a text, we have to be constantly aware that we are dealing with fictional characters. And मतलब obviously you can do the psychoanalysis वैसे भी, मतलब that would not be wrong. There are other texts which have a serious character, serious tone throughout, but especially in a text which is constantly reminding you that these are fictional characters, it gets a bit difficult, है ना? कि do we really want to go there? ठीक है, yeah, basically perhaps we do want to go there, but what is achieved through that? Perhaps you are right. Just say the other funny thing that happens, which that would have been a better example, but it's in the next act, is when she's in a very melodramatic way trying to explain to, मतलब she's being dramatic in, है ना? तुमने अगर देखा होगा first and second act में कि she's acting like that woe stricken woman, हाँ, जो हाय तौबा टाइप्स नहीं एक्ट होती हैं दूसरे प्लेस में अगर तुम देखोगे, ठीक है, this and that, and suddenly jumping into this, you might मतलब तुम एक तरह से जो तुम कर रहे हो साइको एनालिसिस कर रहे हो, but what we can also do is see the disruptions within the tone of the play. ठीक है, that what I meant by disruption in her character is characterization में disruption. that she's not वो stricken.
And she agrees
No.
also very easily na, to the
that would be ठीक है perhaps that she agrees very easily, ठीक है, but that would be in heart. Even if she, let's say later on in the second act she becomes confused and she says, मतलब that can actually be explained even outside of the form of the text, and that would be later on when you will get to know that she is pregnant, ठीक है. and वो second act में बोल रही है ना कि there is something I can't tell you, हाँ क्रागलर, बट तुम्हें जाना होगा, मैं तुम्हारे साथ नहीं रह सकती, है ना. That's something that I can't tell you and because of which I'm rejecting you is precisely this thing, that she's actually pregnant by Mork. And this is one of the reasons that she thinks she has to marry. Okay. But what we can detach this tone. That is what I'm saying. Okay. That the same thing could have been displayed in a shtuk in a very dramatic way, in a very tragic way. This is a tragic occurrence. Instead of talking like teenage lovers, ठीक है, जिस तरीके से बात करें, could have been enacted in a different, because it is after all a play, है ना. So there you can take a मतलब make a claim like this. And also here, जैसे यहाँ पे तुम्हारे जो father और बेटी में बात हो रही है, and when जब उसको अपने गोद में बैठा के समझा रहा है, ठीक है, that's also a very interesting scene in this sense. In that sense, ये दिख रहा है तुम्हें उस पे, Balika setzt sich, nimmt Anna auf die Knie. Sie, eine Frau ohne Mann, das ist eine gotteslästerliche Buddhike. Dir fehlt der Bursche, den sie zur großen, und so weiter und so fort. So what is interesting about this, या क्या बोलते हैं, जो भी जिस भी तरीके से हम बात कर रहे हैं, क्या चल रहा है यहाँ सीन में. What some critiquer have pointed out here is, for example, the incongruency between the body language and the things that they are talking about.
Yeah, like he's treating her like a baby.
हाँ, ठीक है, and this is meant to be exaggerated. हाँ, it is meant to be, और नीचे भी ना, this is like an जब ये तुम्हारी Anna, like what is he do, especially here, na bring dich schon rum, braucht nur gewisse Vollmachten. So was wird am besten in der Ehe geschmissen. I mean, you know very clearly what he's talking about. Our father, ठीक है, ich kann dir das nicht so erklären, du bist zu jung dazu, kitzelt sie, ठीक है. It's like talking about this thing and then acting, like you said, like a baby. Es gilt, also es gilt, und so weiter. And then she is also shrieking like a baby. Okay, so this is like a exaggerated enactment of this. Although okay, we don't have a frame of reference, but this is like a satire on, मतलब ठीक है, making fun of तुम्हारा ये जो इससे पहले बूर्जवा तरावरशवीले नहीं होते थे, बूर्जवा उसमें फैमिली रिलेशंस यूजुअली वहां पे उन ड्रामा थिएटर स्टुक में डिस्कस किए जाते थे. तो उसका एक तरीके से is making fun of those such scenes where father daughter are talking about serious issues and family issues, etc. Okay, by exaggeration. So this is one place where regardless of who the characters are, the body language वगैरह वाली चीजें disrupting the tone that might have set in, वैसे तो नहीं हो रही थी, ठीक है. Und so weiter, like you said, throughout उसमें you have this Uneinheitlichkeit also ना, ये मतलब ये this is something which critics have also pointed out. जिन लोगों को पसंद नहीं आया था इस शो, उन्होंने भी यही बोला था कि इसमें we don't see a Einheitlichkeit throughout. This shtuk is like moving from one tone to another tone very easily. Now, which you might also notice. Sometimes it's becoming serious, and suddenly that seriousness is taken away. You know? Do you notice that?
Yeah, I think maybe that's the purpose also, so you
Exactly.
don't get emotionally connected or invested.
Exactly. ठीक है, जैसे in the end, especially when we are jumping right to the end of the first act, when your Kragler has arrived and your mother exaggeratedly, dramatically, there also you notice something where she is acting like that, and the way Kragler is responding to that. I'm just going down here, ठीक है, etc. And in the end he's like a beaten man when he gets to know कि उसकी तो शादी हो रही है, ठीक है, और उसने उसको छोड़ दिया, etc. So Kragler sieht sie von unten herauf an. Er steht langsam schwerfällig auf, sieht sich das Zimmer an, geht stumm gebuckt herum. You have this whole sad, tragic thing going on. Schaut durchs Fenster und so weiter und so fort. ठीक है? Ohne Mütze. ठीक है? Hier ihre Mütze. Sie haben ihre Mütze liegen lassen. ठीक है? So this one thing disrupts the whole tragic scene that was taking place here. That is the purpose of ending the act, not here. Otherwise, it would have ended here, ना? ऐसे भी तो खत्म हो सकती थी कि वो हारा डिजेक्टेड सा विदाउट मिट्सू जस्ट जा रहा है ना, दिखाते ना जाते हुए, बट देन इट इज by these words that this act ends, which again disrupts. That is the purpose of it. ठीक है? So obviously we have discussed only first, or do you want to say something else to it? You have exaggerated characterization, sometimes this क्या बोलते हैं, conflicting body language and inhalt, ठीक है, inconsistency in character because तुम्हारा फिर Filmdung's effect, and tone also. Is there something else that we want to point out here?
इसमें he's मतलब Bertolt Brecht is constantly disrupting the emotions by changing the tone of the play. तो लेकिन क्यों?
यही ना, the reason was that so that you don't, because that, okay, then you bring us back to the question which we forgot to discuss, and that was, what do you feel about the characters and the whole goings on? So that you don't get emotionally invested into it. हाँ बोलो.
What? हाँ, अगर emotionally invest नहीं होंगे तो what is the purpose?
The purpose is, if you get emotionally invested, then you just see partially, in the sense that you see only from the point of view of the person who is suffering. Whereas what you have to see is wholly detached with, just like कहते हैं ना, इमोशनल मत हो, दिमाग से सोचो. ठीक है? सामने देखो चल क्या रहा है. डोंट गेट इमोशनल. जैसे कि तुम्हें एक जने ने अपनी कहानी सुनाई, तुम उसके साथ इमोशनली इन्वेस्ट हो जाओगे. ओ आई फील फॉर यू, ये तो तुम्हारे साथ बहुत बुरा हो जैसे, बिकॉज यू गेट इमोशनली इन्वेस्टेड, या यू गेट आइडेंटिफाइड विद दैट person. Then दूसरा बंदा दूसरी साइड की कहानी सुनाएगा, you get emotionally invested in that. So where is the truth then? The truth happens when you don't get attached. ठीक है? When you see things in a non-biased way. That means you are ready to even be critical of your protagonist. That is what is aimed at by these Theaterstück. And mostly Brecht does not want you to get attached to your characters. And when you say comedy has this role too, especially जब हम satire की बात करते हैं, what is satire all about? Why is satire usually done through comedy? Precisely because of this, ना? Because satire में एक तो तुम्हें criticism करना होता है society का, and through emotional identification criticism नहीं होता, blind attachment होती है. That is the purpose. I mean, Brecht में you would know, you have read other texts by Brecht. It's very rare that Brecht would be मतलब उसकी serious tone होगी, चाहे वो शॉर्ट स्टोरी हो, चाहे वो थिएटरस्टुक हो. हाँ, उसके एक आध पोएम में हाँ सीरियस टोन थी, बट यूजुअली ही डज नॉट मेक यूज ऑफ सीरियस टोन. ठीक है?
अच्छा, तो ही इज मेनली फोकसिंग ऑन द क्लास स्ट्रगल और ये क्रीग्सहाइम के एंड जो थिंग्स, ये वाली ना.
We will see what he is focusing on. Let's not reduce it to simply this. You know, a lot of things are going on. Obviously, these are. अभी जब हम थेमा की बात की थी, तो थिंग इज कि हमें क्या लग रहा है कि क्या क्या चीजों से डील किया जा रहा है. ही इज डीलिंग विद क्रीग्सहाइम केरेंडर, बट देन ही इज ही सिंपली डीलिंग विद क्रीग्सहाइम केरेंडर ओनली फ्रॉम द पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ऑफ कि ओ बहुत दुख हो रहा है. ऑब्वियसली, एंड आल्सो इसका ऑपोजिट इज आल्सो नॉट ट्रू ना, कि हमें तो बिल्कुल दुख नहीं हो रहा है. ये बाइनरी में थोड़ी ना चलता है. ठीक है? ही इज ट्राइंग टू से कि बेसिकली, जैसे तुम आगे भी पढ़ोगे इसका भी, कि इसमें ही इज स्पीकिंग एज अगेंस्ट क्रीग as much as he's speaking against revolution also, na, blind revolution, Gewalt revolution, not revolution as such. Revolution obviously was always for revolting against status quo and bourgeoisie, lekin that you are doing it out of emotional emotional blindness may, or for other reasons, and what happens because of that, the dangers of blind emotional involvement. And दोनों ही चीजें वो ना, I mean क्रीग्सहाइम केरेंडर उनके साथ बुरा हुआ, ठीक है, नो डाउट. अब उसमें तो कोई डाउट ही नहीं है. दैट इज समथिंग विच इज बीइंग पिक्ड अप हियर. ऐसा नहीं कि ही इज सेइंग कि नहीं है, बट दैट डज नॉट मीन दैट यू गेट इमोशनली involved and see everything that is happening then under that name as Gerecht. That is something that we need to be careful about. And we tend to do it. Even today, we tend to do that. And you would notice that most of the convincing happens on the basis of emotion. People try to convince you of something through emotions, which is a thing to be wary about. Think about things. उसको टोटलिटी में देखने की कोशिश करो बजाय जस्ट फील करो और अटैच कर लो अपने आप को किसी भी चीज के साथ. तो by to avoid that Pfeffendung's effect is used by Brecht. मैं अभी वापस कॉन्क्रीटाइज मतलब वो कर रही हूँ, पर्टिकुलरिटी में ला रही हूँ उसको. ठीक है.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? ओके. हाँ शुभांगी, क्या कहना चाह रहे हो तुम? छुट्टी करने की बात कर रहे हो?
नहीं, I was just going to ask something out of curiosity कि
हाँ बोलो.
जैसे ये चीज उसने Pfeffendung's effect को यूज किया, तो what was the outcome? क्या मतलब जैसे कि simple thing is कि when we get emotionally attached, ठीक है, या personally invested in something or whatever we see or in the drama वगैरह कुछ भी, तो we can think what I feel or I believe is कि we can think more clearly when we are emotionally attached. But when it comes to the disruption of emotionality और या जो भी sentiments बोलेंगे, तो we मतलब I tend to make a conclusion that क्या बकवास चल रहा है. तो did it bring any effect later on?
Can you repeat the last point कि क्या बकवास चल रहा है? वो वाला point मुझे clear नहीं हुआ.
नहीं, I mean कि जैसे from my point of view कि
हाँ, इमोशनल इन्वेस्टमेंट वाला मुझे क्लियर हो गया है कि यू कैन थिंक मोर क्लियरली व्हेन यू आर इमोशनली इन्वेस्टेड,
तो
बट
मैं
व्हेन
वही
यू आर
कह रही
नॉट.
हूँ. हाँ, तो आई फील लाइक कि व्हाट दिस इज अ कंप्लीट रबिश कि मतलब कोई पॉइंट मुझे कोई उसमें लॉजिक नहीं समझ आएगा अगर ऐसे
दैट
बीच
वुड
बीच
बी
में.
हाफ थॉट. आई मीन आई वुड कट यू इन मतलब ऑफ इसमें बीच में एंड से कि दैट हैपेंस व्हेन यू जस्ट लीव थिंकिंग इन द मिड, व्हेन यू आर अफ्रेड ऑफ chaos. बिकॉज देखो ऐसा है कि तुम यू आर करेक्ट फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल in saying that there is no such thing as emotionlessness. Even Brecht wouldn't, although it seems as if I'm saying this or not because I said it, लेकिन it's not like कि emotion है ही नहीं. Because even जब तुम proletariat के साथ खड़े हो या जो तुम communist हो, Brecht की बात कर रही हो, ठीक है, that is also a certain kind of emotion for Gerechtigkeit from his point of view. ठीक है, तो वहाँ तो है, but the reason that you don't get emotionally invested in a shtuk is simply this, that you start with emotion. When you start with emotion, then you are not seeing perhaps reality because you're seeing somebody else's rational. देखो rationality and emotion work together in dialectic. ये चीज तो clear होनी चाहिए. ठीक है, you think, you make something up and then you emotionally attach to it and then you think. दोनों चीजें साइड बाय साइड चल रही होती है. बट द डेंजर ऑफ स्टार्टिंग विद इमोशनैलिटी एंड नॉट क्वेश्चनिंग दैट इमोशन इज दैट यू आर थिंकिंग फ्रॉम समबडी एल्सेस रैशनैलिटी. ठीक है, दैट मीन्स यू कैन ऑल्सो भी क्या कहते हैं इमोशनल अबाउट कम्युनिज्म. जैसे ब्रेस्ट नहीं था, बट देयर आर ऑब्वियसली देयर हैव बीन पीपल हु डिडंट अलाउ थॉट अंडर कम्युनिज्म. नहीं, ठीक है, ब्रेस्ट वुड स्पीक अगेंस्ट दैट ऑल्सो एंड पीपल डिड स्पीक अगेंस्ट दैट. सात्र स्पोक अगेंस्ट दैट, कामू स्पोक अगेंस्ट दैट. ठीक है, that you they started with rationality but they didn't allow rationality later on. Some of the people, ठीक है, I would call them जो भी है, मतलब let that be. ठीक है, लेकिन यहीं पर अगर बात की जाए, the reason that you have to detach yourself is first to check whether your emotions are in the right place or not. और आर यू फीलिंग मतलब आर यू डिसाइडिंग थ्रू समबडी एल्सेस इमोशन. मतलब तुम तो पढ़ चुके हो पाथोस और तुमने रिटोरिक तो पढ़ा हुआ है थोड़ा हमारे कोर्स में ना, तुम्हारा एथोस पाथोस और जो भी था लोगोस. ठीक है, इफ पाथोस इज टू मच, इमोशन इज टू मच, देन वेयर इज मतलब यू टेंड टू इग्नोर द लोगोस ना. मतलब हाउ डू यू सी कि व्हाट इज राइट एंड व्हाट इज रॉन्ग इफ यू स्टार्ट विद इमोशन. द आइडिया इज नॉट टू गेट मतलब annihilate emotions. That is not the idea. The idea is कि तुम जब भी कुछ, and that is like critical thinking का यही एजेंडा है ना, मेन मोटो क्या है, तो चाहे किसी भी केस में हो, चाहे वो साइकोलॉजी में भी हो, किसी भी केस में. क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग का ये है, द मिनट यू फील समथिंग, चेक योरसेल्फ, थिंक अबाउट इट. तुम्हें कुछ इमोशंस आ रहे हैं, स्टॉप एंड थिंक अबाउट इट. that first point of stopping, so that you think, and then after thinking about it from here and then that and then, after that you place your emotions correctly. Emotions annihilate नहीं करने, but you correctly place करना है.
ठीक है, that is the reason why literature especially is, you know, perhaps not essays as much as literature is used as a tool of disruption. Essays might be normative, there is a difference between being normative and disruptive, है ना. नॉर्मेटिव है कि जब तुम्हें थॉट दिया जा रहा है, तुम कह रहे हो ना क्या बकवास चल रहा है, समझ नहीं आ रहा, यू आर राइट इन सेइंग दैट बिकॉज इट्स नॉट गिविंग यू cooked morals. Yeah, this is the moral of the story. Yeah, this
Lead
is the
us
point of
somewhere.
the story. That is not the point of literature. That might be the point of something else. Okay, but literature is disruptive. Yeah, it should be disruptive, should not be normative, because that is and don't take it as a final step. That is the point. Okay, it is disruptive in the sense that it should disrupt your currently placed emotions, which might be wrongly placed and might be correctly placed. I'm not saying it is not, but there is no harm, and in fact it should be done. You first of all disruption, so that you detach yourself from wherever you are emotionally invested, be it left, be it right. If I am invested towards left, for example, then I also need to constantly, and I do that constantly, detach myself from there and see, because obviously it's left right भी तो एक pseudo चीज ही है ना, so pseudo binary. हाँ, लेफ्ट पीपल, राइट पीपल, कोई कुछ भी कह सकता है, कुछ भी कर सकता है, ठीक है. वी हैव मूव्ड बियॉन्ड दैट बाइनरी नाउ, ठीक है. तो हमेशा disrupt yourself, detach yourself from there, think about it, and then come back and then place your emotions tentatively. Place your emotions ad hoc. Unfortunately ad hoc से हमें माइंड होता है, लेकिन ad hoc का मतलब होता है in a temporary manner, and disrupt it again later on. Disrupt it, place it. That is when you become thinking beings. ठीक है. Disruption and placing of emotions. And again, I'm repeating it again, although it's being repetitive now, कि literature is meant to be disruptive. And you at the end of the play, you are not supposed to think कि, okay, so what have we come to now? No, it has disrupted you. Now it's your task to close that chaos that emerged. It was supposed to create chaos in you so that you don't attach to the status quo. Now your task is to think about it, how to close that gap, that risk that was created, a risk in German, that I forgot the English term, that risk that was created, how do you mend that back? That is your, as a thinking being and as an individual, your task to suggest that. ठीक है. ठीक है. Anything else? All those 1:30 बज गए. I know you have a class next. ठीक है. तो so the next, please, I know only a few of you, although we didn't talk about it explicitly, I'm just feeling it कि apart from a few of you, most of you didn't read the 2 acts. ठीक है. तो प्लीज परसों तक फिर ये दूसरा तो पढ़ना ही है, बट if possible the next one also पढ़ के आना. ठीक है.
अच्छा मैम, can you please upload the English version as well?
I'll upload that. ठीक है. The reason I'm uploading that is not only because you check कि यहाँ पे जर्मन कुछ गड़बड़ शड़बड़ हो रखी है, सिर्फ टैली कर लो, but at the same time there are comments by Brecht himself later on. मतलब you just check उसमें, या मैं भी दिखाती हूँ अगर दिख रहा है तो, and then I'll close the book. Is it visible? हाँ, it's visible ना. This is Drums in the Night वाला जो मैं PDF अपलोड करूंगी. This I'm just showing it on the book. These are the English version जिसमें Drums in the Night का तुम पढ़ सकते हो. And these are notes again later on, Drums in the Night, where you have Brecht writing about aspects of the play itself. How did he actually intentionally? Sometimes he's saying it became a huge success. This play became a huge success, but according to Brecht, it failed because the bourgeois failed to grasp the irony of the whole situation. They mistook it. They misunderstood. So, like you said, कि इसका फायदा क्या होता है? हाँ, you are right कि sometimes the work fails to function also. ठीक है, तो वो तो होता है. That's the individual failing or individual succeeding of a work, but its intention is to disrupt. Okay, we can also, your task is also to read these comments later on जो ब्रेश्ट ने खुद बोले हैं. Where does he stand vis-a-vis his own work? लेकिन first read the next acts, the 2 acts at least, ठीक है, for the next class. Okay. Is there something that you want to ask finally, or sonst können wir auch Schluss machen?
Schluss machen.
Die anderen?
Auf Wiedersehen.
Chalo, also dann sehen wir uns am Donnerstag.
Okay.
Okay? Okay.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
Tschüss.
Bye, ma'am.
Tschüss. Danke.